I'm Callista.
And I'm Teresa, and this is Culprit. So I think we're going to talk about, we just finished Scarpetta, and we haven't read any of the books. I think I looked, and the first book came out like in 1990. I hope I'm not confusing that. But what did you think?
I thought the same thing you did. I think we'll try the second season because obviously only the first season is out right now. We really liked Jamie Lee Curtis. We hated her character. We didn't love the whole AI angle, which if the book was released in 1990, we're gonna bet it wasn't in the book. But overall, we found it pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Nicole Kidman. I mean, I know she has done some super art house type movies that I haven't seen, but I mean, I think she's good in everything. And I mean, I really like Jamie Lee Curtis, like you said, too. Her character was just like so over the top, just like really like, and I'm sure that's how it was written because, again, like Jamie Lee Curtis,
Mm.
like she was overacting all the time. Or it was just, I don't know, it was weird. And Simon Baker. Um, I don't know the actor that played the young Benton, but I liked his character when he was young better. And I'm not sure that the books. I mean, obviously, I think they must start when she first starts out being a medical examiner. So maybe that's why, because they're trying to, I don't know, lift from several books. Maybe that's why they have the past and present.
Yeah, I mean, what did I say? I feel like from young Benton to Simon Baker's current day Benton, it's like he got a personality transplant. Like, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. And if his childhood was all effed up, then why wouldn't have young Ben been weird? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that shit tends to stick with you throughout your entire life, not just part of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it was good. I feel like we're always trying to search for things to watch. And, I'm sure we've mentioned that we're not really into comedies. We like a drama. We like something, this wasn't historical, but yeah, I mean, like you said, what was it, 8 episodes? So yeah, I definitely want to try the second season, though no spoilers, but it kind of ends on a gotcha. And then again, like it's not the olden days but who knows how long you have to wait for the next season. But I'm not hugely invested, but I will watch the second one. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I say this about so many things probably, but I feel like I wanted to like it more than I did just because, interesting premise and really like a female medical examiner, or is that what she was? Or was she something different than that?
isn't that what she was?
Okay, yeah, I knew she was like, I wanted to say appointed, so I think that's what she was. But yeah, really like that premise. But there were just a couple like odd elements, and I do think you looked and those odd elements weren't in the book or were less present in the books. So
Yeah, and I didn't piggyback on your AI thing, but I'm sure that wasn't in the books. And I mean, it's fine that, I mean, I'm assuming the daughter is in the book. Oh, what was the point of that? Are you trying to make it more current? I mean, is that what they're going to do to things now? Oh my God, AI is such a big deal. Let's add this unnecessary element to something that doesn't need it. I mean, hopefully not. I didn't think it added a lot. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like sometimes, if something is based on a book, you probably have something good to start with. So and I know I complain about this each time that we talk about that. But why there so much, or why try to like, ooh, let's, pull in some current elements. I'm sure lots of people think something different, but I just didn't think that was really necessary or really added much.
yeah, and I wonder, like you said, since they might have pulled from multiple books, like there's past and present, if from it's Louise Penny's the author, right? If she did
No,
include the AI in the more current books.
no, it's Patricia something. No, it's not Louise Penny.
Oh.
Um, well, now I'm gonna look it up because that's gonna bother me. I swear or is Patricia the one that does all the A for alibi, those ones. I don't know. No, I'm sure it's not Louise Penny. Um, Patricia Cornwell. And the first one did come out in 1990. I was right. So, yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's really exciting. Our little 2 cents about that.
Yeah, so, if you wanna watch it, only 8 to 10 episodes, so, not a super long investment, but, yeah.
Yeah, I think I said 8, you were right, 10.
Oh,
Yeah,
anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. On November 12th, 2008, 40-year-old Alexandre Despallières ran into the Abba Montparnasse Hotel's reception area to yell for someone to call the fire department. He had just entered the hotel room beside his own to discover that his civil partner, 62-year-old Peter Ikin, was no longer breathing. When emergency responders arrived, they found Alex seemingly beside himself as he sobbed over his previously healthy partner's prone form. It didn't take them long to realize that it was too late to save Peter. He was declared dead at 4:55 that afternoon. Although the police officers and firefighters on the scene didn't notice anything odd, the doctor who examined Peter spotted several medications in the room. There were some scattered on the floor, others inside of a bag, and still more beneath the bedside table. Despite the questionable amount of prescriptions near Peter's body, his death wasn't ruled as suspicious, so Alex was free to inherit his considerable assets. Yet, this wasn't the first death that Alex had benefited from. In fact, it wasn't even the second. It would later be revealed that Alex had a history of getting exactly what he wanted out of each of his relationships, no matter the cost. Alexandre Despallières was born in 1968 in the northwestern outskirts of Paris in Bois Colombes, or Dove Woods, so called for the many wild doves that were said to have once lived in the area. The youngest of three boys, Alex may not have been dressed by doves and other woodland creatures.
I love a Cinderella reference.
Wasn't she your favorite Disney princess? I seem to remember watching that movie more than once growing up.
I mean, I think we watched a lot of Disney movies over and over again, but she was. But I also really loved Belle.
Me too. But there was no denying that Alex lived a charmed life in the family home at 34 Rue des Mauriers. He grew up not just loved, but adored by his well to do parents, particularly by his mother, Monique. Alex's bad habits, which included stealing his father's credit cards and making off with secret checks, were continuously ignored. And his parents' devotion only increased after Alex claimed to have been diagnosed as HIV positive when he was 16.
I mean, a bad habit is talking with your mouth full, not stealing.
I mean, both are upsetting, but crimes against decorum are a bit less concerning than those that carry a prison sentence.
True. In the midst of the AIDS crisis of the 80s, Alex announced that his doctors didn't expect him to make it past 6 months. In the eyes of his devastated parents, he could do no wrong. So he got used to pushing his luck, such as by dropping out of high school for the hell of it. Far from the coursework being beyond the reach of a teenager fascinated with Russian literature and psychoanalysis, Alex simply didn't want to put in the effort. After all, an education hardly mattered if he would never get the chance to use it. He wanted to make the most of the time he had left, and Monique didn't begrudge him for it, even when it involved constant partying and a coke habit. With his mother wrapped around his little finger, Alex wanted to see if he could work the same spell on others, and it seemed that he could. He went through a series of besotted rich older lovers whom he brought around to the family home. While Monique was happy to welcome these prominent men into her house, her husband, Marcel, could see that he was allowing his selfish son to become the worst version of himself.
But he couldn't stop his son. Apparently, not even the Grim Reaper could do that. Because Alex outlived his death sentence, making it seem likely that he was, at least in part, lying about his diagnosis. And that wasn't the only story he tried to sell. Alex had become a charismatic liar who took advantage of his looks by alternately claiming to be the love child of cinematic stars Elizabeth Taylor and Roger Moore, and the singer of Aha, the Norwegian band that brought the world Take On Me. But when the 19-year-old actually tried his hand at singing with his 45 RPM record, L'amour à mort, or Love Until Death, the 1987 single only achieved moderate success, failing to cement Alex as a celebrity sensation. Still intent on securing wealth and fame, Alex would go on to ingratiate himself with those who could put him in proximity to icons like Elton John by using his charm to gain the trust of his targets. Alex defrauded some of his victims by borrowing money he never paid back. But he soon realized that he could exert more manipulation by drugging them. He took to carrying around a suitcase filled with medication that he had no plans to use on himself. He learned exactly how much he should use for each of his nefarious purposes to make someone more compliant, to open them up to extortion, or to murder them. And to Alex, poison was the only way to go about killing someone. He even said as much during a party, having suggested that the guests play a game in which they had to select the best method of murder. Alex reasoned that poison was not only the most effective choice, but also the one that allowed the murderer to keep their distance from the victim during the act itself.
I mean, that seems like normal small talk while sipping a Chambord and soda.
Perfectly normal. There are a lot of overplayed party games. Alex was just trying to liven things up.
Sure. In 1993, Alex found out that an upcoming film and record producer had contacted his friend, a famous French defense lawyer named Olivier Metzner, in order to file a complaint against Alex for fraud, theft, and the former pop singer's favorite method of murder, poisoning. Having hung out in the same Parisian gay scene for the last 8 years, Alex knew who Olivier was, but he had never officially met him. Now, though, Alex had the lawyer firmly in his sights. The man, who would later hold the fates of Alex and numerous others in his hands, had rather humble beginnings. Olivier Metzner was born in Normandy in 1949 to Protestant dairy farmers whose ancestors had escaped Prussia in the late 1800s. Although in much less dire circumstances, Olivier and his two siblings all ended up leaving their old lives behind too, venturing out from the countryside to seek a different kind of future. Olivier's sister became a teacher in Canada. His brother pursued a career as a scientist, and Olivier decided to study law after seeing Czech lawyer and writer Franz Kafka's warnings about an incomprehensible bureaucratic legal system play out in a local story about a shepherd who had been sentenced to death after being unable to defend himself without the assistance of an interpreter, a role Olivier felt called to take on to help his clients navigate the justice system.
Following his studies in Caen, Olivier moved to Paris, where he first made his mark defending French gangsters in the 70s before moving on to the world of white collar crime, where his prominent clients granted him entry to the upper echelons of French society. He went on to represent a long list of notorious defendants, such as Continental Airlines after the 2000 Concorde crash, former Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega, and rogue trader Jérôme Kerviel, who lost 4.9 billion euros at the French bank Société Générale. With an hourly fee of 450 euros, Olivier became one of the highest paid lawyers in Paris, who could be seen being chauffeured to court in a Jaguar and striding around his manor in Yvelines, west of the capital. Regardless of Olivier's prestige, young Alex still managed to bewitch him, and once he had, Olivier started working against his upcoming film and record producer friend to protect his new lover. In the end, the complaint against Alex was dismissed later that same year. As Alex continued to get himself into trouble in the following decades, Olivier could always be relied upon to send a Western Union money order to make it go away.
More often than not, though, Alex dodged a bullet through what seemed like nothing more than sheer luck, because although the deaths were never investigated, some believed that he drugged and killed his father and both of his grandmothers in 2001, as well as his mother in 2002. In the case of his father, Alex had reportedly gone to the chemist to pick up some of Marcel's medication before coming back to make his dad some soup, with those pills as the secret deadly ingredient. His grandmothers died over the course of the following months. Then, Monique was also found dead in her bed. Her suicide note stated that she couldn't go on without her husband. Conveniently enough, after each of his relatives' passing, Alex had received a share of their substantial assets. Former model Petra Campbell, the ex partner of one of Alex's brothers, went so far as to file a report with French police about her concerns over the way Alex's relatives had died. But with no ongoing case against him, Alex was able to go after a new target in a new country. He was staying in America in 2002 when he met a Moroccan billionaire living in California named Marcel Becker at the pool of the Beverly Hills Hotel. Marcel was an elderly widow who had just suffered yet another loss after her stepson died. Seeing Marcel's grief as his way in, the 30-something-year-old Alex presented himself as a wealthy heir to liken their supposed circumstances. Like many others, Marcel believed Alex's tragic backstory and legally adopted him in 2005. The arrangement was short lived, however, after Marcel started to fear that Alex had attempted to poison her during a shared dinner. She annulled the adoption only days after formalizing it.
Alex may have exhausted his luck with Marcel, but California is the land of endless opportunity. So, a couple of years later, Alex returned to the Golden State wearing a different mask. Over the course of a few months, he managed to con several journalists and investors into believing that he was a successful web entrepreneur. When Alex was eventually found out as a fraud, he decided it was time for yet another reinvention. His next destination, Australia. Alex had plans to rekindle an old flame, securing millions for himself in the process. Alex first ran into Australian Warner Music executive Peter Ikin at a convention organized by the label in San Francisco in 1988. 2 decades older than Alex, Peter was no stranger to star power. He had worked with and befriended legends like Madonna and Elton John. Even still, there was just something about Alex. For a few months, their romance involved luxury cruises around the world and encounters with the celebrities in Peter's orbit. Although it appeared that being with Peter gave Alex the lifestyle he had always felt he deserved, it apparently wasn't meant to last. When the relationship ended, Alex dropped out of Peter's life for years. That was until he popped back up 6 months before Peter's sudden demise.
In the spring of 2008, 20 years after the pair first met, Alex flew to Australia and knocked on the door to Peter's Sydney Harbor apartment with his personal assistant, Jeremy Billian, in tow. Alex told Peter that he now owned an IT business worth billions, although he later insisted that Peter had been the one to spread this lie so that no one would assume the former pop singer pursued the retired music mogul for his money. As if that wasn't enough of a claim, Alex revamped the death sentence he said he had been given at 16 by now revealing that he had a fatal brain tumor. The dying man explained that he had been in love with Peter for 2 decades and that he wanted to marry him so that he, not Alex's estranged brothers, would inherit his fortune. With Alex's time running out, he and Peter entered a civil partnership in October, which they celebrated with a civil service wedding in London. 3 weeks after their wedding, Alex traveled to Paris to see his former lover, lawyer Olivier Metzner, while Peter was in Brussels visiting some of his Australian friends on their European vacation. Alex, who had told Peter that he had returned to the City of Light to finalize his plans to leave his riches to him, called to say he had argued with Olivier at his manor in Yvelines and had relocated to the Abbe Montparnasse hotel on Paris's left bank. Having taken the Eurostar to Paris on November 6, 2008, Peter met up with Alex at the hotel and asked why he hadn't gone the usual five-star route. Alex explained that Olivier was one of the owners and he had chosen it to help him out.
6 days after his arrival, Peter was dead. Even though the doctor on the scene noticed a number of medications in Peter's hotel room, no one else thought his sudden death was suspect. Only later was it revealed that in the days leading up to Peter's passing, Alex had taken his partner to the hospital for a sudden sickness, but Peter had inexplicably refused treatment. This unusual behavior had resulted in Alex taking a different hotel room before Peter's death, a death that was ruled by a French coroner at the time to have been caused by heart failure and hepatitis. Even in his anguish, Alex appeared to accept his partner's unexpected death. But Peter's loved ones weren't as willing to move on, at least not at the speed with which Alex was. Just as Alex had done when his parents had died, he didn't waste any time in cremating Peter's body, scheduling his funeral only 2 days after his sudden demise. Friends of the late producer were forced to race to Paris to say goodbye. Once they were all gathered at Père Lachaise Cemetery, no one could deny that Alex looked to be in the midst of deep grief. And without any immediate proof that a crime had been committed, on February 9th, 2009, investigators closed the case.
As for the man who had organized the hasty proceedings, Alex acted just as quickly when it came to claiming Peter's inheritance. When he learned that the fact that the civil partnership contract was signed in the UK meant that it wasn't valid in Peter's home country of Australia, Alex had his lawyer send over a single page photocopy of a new will that has seemingly been signed by Peter. According to the recent document, Peter agreed to leave his $20 million fortune, which included a more than £1 million flat in London, to Alex. Within days of Peter's passing, Alex and his personal assistant, Jeremy Billion, who had acted as a witness to the will, so convenient, proceeded to move into the Victorian flat in Chelsea's well to do Cheney Place and began hosting lavish dinner parties. Someone who did the preparation for many of these soirees was Peter's old friend and Rod Stewart's former manager, Billy Gaff.
Initially, Billy lived in the flat with Alex, using his proximity to comfort him through his loss. He must have been heartened to see Alex's continuing devotion to his late partner as he routinely led guests into Peter's old bedroom, where he kept the ash filled urn near a vase that he refilled with fresh white flowers twice a week. So, when the man he then considered a friend lamented that most of his funds were tied up, Billy lent him money.
Oh, Billy.
I know, it's exactly that. Alex then wanted Jeremy's lover, Vincent Bray, to move in. Vincent, incidentally, had been another witness to sign Peter's will. Billy was using the spare room, and he argued with Alex about a possible new roommate. Ultimately, he was the one who moved out. Stemming from a generosity he came to regret, Billy ended up giving Alex, the supposed billionaire, more than £300,000 to hold him over. Eventually, though, Alex got his hands on Peter's fortune. The money was clearly burning a hole in his pocket because Alex, a man who didn't drive, purchased himself and his two roommates new Porsches. He also decided to use his inheritance for some philanthropy, such as by donating £220,550 to the National Trust to be used on the UMAs at Clifton House, a luxury hotel in Berkshire, England.
Around the time that Billy was developing doubts about Alex and his increasingly questionable behavior, London music executive John Reed, who had once managed Elton John, was leaving each of his visits to his late friend's flat with a feeling that something wasn't quite right. Not one to stick his head in the sand, he chose to act on his misgivings by checking up on Alex's IT company. Contrary to what Peter had divulged, Alex didn't own property all over the world. There was no chateau in France, or a mansion in Beverly Hills, or even a $30 million New York apartment. Instead, all Alex had was a mid-size West Hollywood apartment. Now, more than ever, John just couldn't believe that his old friend had died from heart failure and hepatitis. After he learned that French law requires certain organs to be stored for up to 1 year after a sudden death, he rushed to order a toxicology report. Right before the 1 year anniversary of Peter's death and the date upon which his organs were to be destroyed, the analysis was conducted. The resulting report confirmed what Peter's loved ones had started to suspect. He hadn't died of natural causes. The lethal doses of paracetamol, also known as Tylenol, in his system confirmed it.
And John Reed hadn't been the only one of Peter's friends who had turned his concerns into action. John Douglas had sent a letter to the prosecutor in which he highlighted that Alex, the one with a fatal brain tumor, had survived, whereas perfectly healthy Peter had not. Petra Campbell, the former model who had been previously involved with one of Alex's brothers, didn't stop at filing a police report regarding the deaths of Alex's family members. She also wrote a letter in which she made no bones about calling Alex out as a serial killer.
Good on her. See something, say something.
For real, Petra is not letting shit slide. After receiving the toxicology report as well as the letters, the prosecutor's office reopened the case into Alex in February 2010. A year after the case was originally closed, investigators were ready to take another look at the cause of death and the possibility of charging Alex with murder. It didn't take long for that possibility to turn into a probability because in June 2010, less than 6 months later, Alex was arrested and held on remand on suspicion of murdering Peter. However, his stay at Paris's Friend prison was rather short lived, since he was released on bail in March 2011. This was only a taste of freedom, though, since his failure to follow his bail conditions meant that he was rearrested in September 2011. But it seemed that Alex's prison stints were never destined to hit the 1 year mark, because before that milestone arrived, his high profile lawyer, Thierry Herzog, who once represented former President Nicolas Sarkozy, managed to argue that his client's depression had made him unable to comply with his bail requirements. And Alex was placed under judicial supervision and let out once again.
As the police investigation led by a Paris judge trudged along, Alex moved to a small village, but his name didn't stay out of the papers for long. When 63-year-old Olivier Metzner's body was discovered floating off the coast of his private island in Brittany on March 17, 2013, some speculated that Alex had a hand in his lover's demise. However, without proof of foul play, Olivier's death was officially ruled a suicide by drowning following an overdose. He may not have killed him, but Alex wasn't above throwing Olivier to the wolves when it suited him. Alex's true character became clearer when he accused Olivier of helping him forge Peter's will. After Olivier was forced to take time away from the Bettencourt case, in which he was representing Francois Bettencourt Myers, who sought to have her sickly mother, Liliane Bettencourt, the heiress to the L'Oreal Cosmetics fortune, made a ward at the court to answer the police's questions about his former flame's unsubstantiated claims, Olivier finally cut ties with the man at the center of a series of suspicious deaths.
Around the time that his reputation was being dragged through the mud, Olivier purchased the island of Boadic in the Morbihan Gulf for more than 2 million euros in 2010. After various improvements, including the installation of hidden speakers in the rocks that enabled him to listen to the Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi as he surveyed his domain, he listed the island for 10 million euros a couple of years later and bought the boat Théorème. The man who had felt called to the ocean since he was a teenager had been talking about setting sail in the Cyclades in the lead up to his death. That death was determined to be a suicide after Olivier's cleaning lady came upon her employer's suicide note in his house on Boadic, and the amphibious vehicle he had navigated to the island from the mainland was located in a nearby cove. Olivier may have achieved such an enviable level of success that he would sometimes illicitly smoke his Cuban cigar inside the Palais de Justice, safe in the knowledge that he wouldn't be stopped by any lowly police officers or court officials. But to a select few, his suicide wasn't a shock. He might have been a divisive public figure, but Olivier was well known for keeping his private life under wraps. However, after his passing, journalist Denis Robert discussed his interview with Olivier from 2 decades earlier. Cut from the interview at the lawyer's request was a scene in which Olivier broke down and confessed to having wasted his life by not following his dream of becoming a sailor. Despite the carnage he had left in his wake, including the various alleged poisonings, Alexandre Despallières never stood trial for any of his crimes. At the age of 53, he died on January 26, 2022, at the Bichat Claude Bernard Hospital in Paris, supposedly from COVID-19. In the many years between his multiple arrests and death, Alex, unlike his victims, had been free to live his life. He had married a physicist, Shin Wei, with whom he had started a company to convert electromagnetic waves into electricity called K3OPS.
The wheels of justice might have ground slowly enough to allow Alex to don yet another new hat before dying an innocent man, but at the very least, he hadn't gone to the grave with the inheritance he had stolen. After Alex maintained that he was the sole beneficiary of the late music mogul's will, Peter's family contested the claim in the British High Court, and the will was established as a fake a year after Peter's passing. As a result, Alex was forced to agree to an out of court settlement in which Peter's assets, including the Chelsea flat and the proceeds from the 3 Porsches, were returned to his true heirs, including his family, friends, and favorite charities. However, Alex hadn't been the only one implicated in the forgery scheme. The other 2 former owners of the purloined Porsches hadn't been given those cars for nothing. A year and a half after Peter's death, the police took both Alex and his personal assistant, Jeremy Billion, into custody. Alex may have been the mastermind, but Jeremy and his lover, Vincent Bray, had also been apprehended for witnessing the forged will.
While in police custody, Vincent professed his innocence, insisting that he had no idea what he was signing since it was all in English. Jeremy, on the other hand, attempted to mitigate his role by explaining that Alex, his ex partner, had coerced and threatened him into participating in the forgery. Alex, unsurprisingly, always maintained that he had played no part either in Peter's death or in forging the will. He insisted that the will had simply turned up in a court in Brighton, which was where Alex's then solicitor was located, had granted probate. But even though Alex stuck to his story until the bitter end, Vincent and Jeremy eventually confessed to the crimes of forgery and use of forged documents and complicity in forgery and use of forged documents. The trial in which Alex should have appeared was finally scheduled for June 2022, nearly 14 years after Peter's death. But due to the lengthy legal process that preceded it, only Vincent and Jeremy arrived at the Paris Assize Court for the 2-day trial. Unlike his accomplices, Alex escaped the justice system, and upsettingly, despite not being prosecuted, he achieved a measure of the recognition to which he had long felt entitled. Next time, we'll be discussing the case of Judith Himes.
I just want to say thank you, because I know you wrote this episode, for taking most of the French words. So thanks for that, because I would have just butchered all of them.
I don't think so. I mean, I didn't take all of them.
You took most of them, and you did a really good job.
Thanks.
All the sources we used for this episode are in the show notes below. If you'd like to suggest a case for us to discuss, you can email us at culpritpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us at culpritthepod on Instagram and at culpritpodcast on TikTok. Feel free to leave us a comment, rating, or review to let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your opinions.
See you soon.